Welcome everybody to Textiles and Tea with the Handweavers Guild of America. I'm Kathie Roig. I'm the advertising and marketing manager, and I get to be your host today. Today we will be sponsored by Harriet Ringgold. Harriet's one of our Textiles and Tea angels. She always is supporting Textiles and Tea, and we do appreciate it. Thank you, Harriet, for being our sponsor today. As always, please put your questions in the Q&A and not in the chat. We love your comments in chat, but I can't see those very well. But I can see your questions in Q&A. So if you would do that, that would be great. Today, I'm excited because Kathie Roig is here to have tea. Kathie expresses herself through her hand-woven cloth, as you will see today. Weaving is a series of steps, a process that is methodical, meditative, contemplative, rhythmic, and solitary. Her work is functional as well, such as placemats and baby blankets, but it's also an expressive art, and she creates weavings that reflect her life in time and place. Her story is told through hand-woven cloth. Kathie's lived in various towns and cities in North Carolina and in Ohio. And in 2015, she moved to Charlotte, where she worked from her home studio, as well as shared a workspace among other artists and makers. But then in 2021, she moved back to Dublin, Ohio, her home state. Welcome, Kathie. It's wonderful to have you here.
Hi, Kathie. Thank you. And thank you, Harriet. I give a big thank you to Harriet. She was in my class at Convergence, so it was fun to meet her.
She's a sweetheart. We love her.
She is.
So we're going to start off with, what is your favorite tea?
Well, my favorite tea, well, my son got me a tea subscription for Christmas last year. Yeah,
really?
You can get those. And so it comes with a variety of teas. So I've been able to experiment with a lot of tea, but my favorite is lemon ginger herbal tea is what I like a lot.
So when you get those, have you found that you like most of the new ones? Or are they pretty weird?
Some of them are kind of weird. You can kind of put your preference on what kind of tea you want when you set up your subscription. And I like herbal teas a lot. But I've had some pretty weird ones. Like, I think there was like a velvet chocolate cake tea that tasted like velvet chocolate, the velvet cake tea. Anyway.
Oh, yum.
So
I think I like anything that's chocolate.
Yeah.
So share with us how you got started in fiber. What was that journey for you like?
Well, like all of the people that have started their journey, I sewed my doll's clothes, and my mom taught me how to sew. After I sewed my doll's clothes, and I learned how to sew my own clothes. So I sewed a lot of my own clothes. And I had a cousin who was an art teacher, and she had a loom. I never knew what a loom was. And I think I was like 4th grade or so. So that was my first, finding out what a loom is. Then through college, I kind of tried to find my way a little bit. Ended up getting a degree in visual arts from Otterbein College outside of Columbus here. And then I got married, and my husband bought me a table loom for a wedding present.
Aww.
And I like to say I still have the table loom and the husband. So then it was just kind of this evolution of finding weaving is what I love to do. I took a class on how to weave, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. So we moved around a bit early in our marriage, and I moved to Indiana, and there was a weaving store there called Weaver's Way in Crown Point, Indiana. And they had a guild, and I joined the guild and just kept enjoying learning different weaving, and worked for a woman actually who was a professional weaver. And it just kind of, kept going from there.
I can't imagine what that must be like to come out of school and work for a professional. I mean, was this someone you knew really well, or I just would be so intimidated?
Well, no, so we moved, I got married, and then 6 months later we moved to Indiana, like I said, near Gary, Indiana, which I don't know if you're familiar with Gary, Indiana. It's not a garden spot, let me tell you. And I thought, what the heck has happened to my life? But like I said, well, I have this loom and found this weaving store, and immediately found wonderful people. There was the Handweavers Guild. I don't know if anybody's out there watching, but yeah, so I'm trying to think. It was just, we were only there for a couple years, and I met, her name was Pat Short, and she did art fairs, and then she got some work working for a fashion designer out of Chicago who wanted yardage for her creations. And so it was pretty basic, plain weave. It was kind of a cottony lace yarn, like 8 ends per inch. I mean, it was really basic, but it taught me a lot about what it might be like if I wanted to be a weaver as my job. And you might, how to set up your loom kind of efficiently, how to work every day, how to keep track of your materials. You don't want to waste your time or your materials. So it was, I hadn't known her before then, but it was a very nice, casual kind of relationship. Yeah, it was very nice. And then I moved back to Cleveland, which is where we were living. And I still worked for her a little bit. She sent me yarn and I sent her yardage. But then I decided to see if I could do this on my own. So I started weaving my own cloth and making clothing. So this was like the early 80s.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I did some art fairs and sold at some, small little boutiques in the area. And then I had a child and things changed a little bit. So I stopped kind of doing the production weaving as much, but I still kept weaving. And kind of as he got older, then I had more time to weave, and I didn't do clothing so much anymore after that. I started doing functional items and wall pieces. So I say it's kind of been like an evolution, and like you said in my statement, I was I would weave, the things I would be weaving would be reflective of where I was living, what my life was like at the time.
Well, one of the weaving techniques that you are so well known for is the painted warps. So would you give a brief explanation of your version of painted warps? And then how did that grab you? Why was that so important to you?
All right, well, my version of warp painting or painted warps is using fabric paints. It's not dye. And if you've ever taken my workshop, you will know that that's the first thing I say, and I will always say it, and it's not dye, because there's a big difference. There's no chemical reaction that takes place. You're applying paint to the yarn. And so, there's like this broad term, warp painting, but some people use dye for that. Mm-hmm. And I use fabric paint. And so it's a direct application of the color to the warp yarn. And I in this image, this is at the folk school, and they're painting off the loom, as you can see. And I also teach and use warp painting on the loom. So there's no, you wash the yarn, but you don't have to worry about anything else. No soda ash, none of that. It's just paint. It behaves a lot like watercolor, I say. So the reason I started doing this, well, kind of two things melded. One, I had been in a studio with a lot of other fiber artists, not weavers particularly, but other artists that painted on or dyed both on fabric or printed. And so they had all these crazy, paints and potions, and I thought was really cool. So that's how I kind of first discovered this fabric paint. And there's a variety of different paints, and this was a very liquidy paint. So that's kind of how I knew about the product. Then I had got a commission to do a piece, a 2-panel large wall hanging. And they wanted it to be reflective of this mountain scene. It was for St. Bonaventure University in Buffalo, New York. And so my first thought was I was going to dye the yarn, dye it and then apply the dye to the warp and then put the warp on the loom and apply the dye in areas that I wanted it to be. So think of like, the blue sky, the mountain, brown, and maybe some trees. So I tried that, and I wove the fabric. Man, it was terrible. It was kind of fine for fabric, but it didn't do what I wanted it to do. It was just like these big areas of green and then a big area of blue, and there was no subtlety to it. So I don't know. So then I took a class at the folk school. I had moved to North Carolina at this point. I took a class at the folk school on Swedish weaving. And you can see how I have the reed in a reed holder. So that's a Swedish method of dressing your loom. Is you thread the reed and that like becomes the rattle basically. So you don't spread the warp out like in this image, but you'd have your chained warp there instead, and then you take that to your loom and wind it on, and then that's how they would dress their loom. Well, as I looked at that, I thought, well, if I could kind of do that but spread the warp out on a big long table, I'd have my warp all in front of me, and I could put the color where I wanted it. I could add water to the paint if I wanted it to be a lighter shade. I could blend colors. If I wanted blue, I could put a little yellow, and if I wanted green, I could put a little yellow and a little blue, and they'd blend, and it would be a more nuanced and a more interesting color, I thought. So I did that. And
it was an aha moment.
It was an aha moment.
That's cool.
Yes, so that is, and the piece worked better, and yeah, so that's how that all began.
Oh, that's brilliant. Just stumbled in on that.
Yeah, well, it was like I said, it was kind of an evolution, and I had a problem, and I kind of had these different things I could pick from to help solve that problem that I wanted. So
we used to always say that you usually walk away from a workshop and the biggest thing you remember is probably nothing that has to do with
I mean, I've got this, we did all these round robins of Swedish weaving, which was wonderful, but I've not ever done any of that weaving before. But the loom holders and how it helped me kind of figure out And I might have seen another person who had spread their warp out like that and used dyes. But I wanted to use paint so that I could get, more subtle coloring. Yeah.
Well, I was reading an article that you had written, or maybe it was on your website, and you were talking about how painting is so spontaneous, and you kind of talked about that just now. And it's an interesting contrast between kind of the methodical aspects of weaving and then the spontaneity of being able to paint that warp.
Yeah.
Is spontaneity an attraction for you, or is that stepping outside the norm? Or
I also sometimes say I have this split brain personality where I'm like, throw caution to the wind, put the paint on the yarn, see what happens and let it do its thing. But then when it comes to the weave structure or the pattern, I want to, really any kind of weaving, you've got to kind of know how many threads and be pretty precise about it all. So I guess I like both parts of it. I like actually the combination of those two things playing with each other. But it is definitely a different brain set.
Well, this next piece we're going to talk about is your work has real personal meaning to you, some of your pieces. In this next one, we're going to talk about No One Told the Leaves. Why was this piece so important to you?
I always get pretty emotional when I talk about this. So we'll see how I do. So I wove this after 9/11. We, as everyone was, it seems so long ago now, doesn't it? Wondering what can I do? How can I make a difference, or how can I heal? I have family in New York City, and my niece was at a high school right by the towers, and so there was a personal connection. So that's when this was made. The title "No One Told the Leaves" came from a newspaper article. At that time I was living in Cleveland, and it was in the local paper. I remember the woman, her editorialist, Regina Brett, and she too was struggling on, how do you respond to this? What do we do? And her reply was, go take a walk in the woods. And I relate to that. I like to do that. And she said, the world has changed, and we all knew the world changed, but no one told the leaves. The seasons will still come. The world will still go around. And so let's celebrate that. So that's where this came from. So this was woven on my draw loom, and I can weave designs that I put on graph paper, basically. So I could take my handwriting and I wrote the words "No one told the leaves" over and over, and I put that on graph paper, and that's what the center rectangle says. And the warp yarn was wound in different chains, and I dipped it in a diluted bleach to remove the color. And I did the same with the weft. So it kind of is this ashy look to it, but it was a removal of the color. And you can kind of see branches and a leaf woven in there. That was woven in the draw loom design. So it's also the other part about it. It's also a more personal, even more so, because sometimes if you have a personal loss, people don't know. It's a quiet thing. It's a hidden thing. And again, even though you have this personal loss, the world still continues and the seasons change.
It's such a beautiful piece. It just says so much. So, and along the same lines is with this empathy and equality. And can you talk some about how you designed this? Because there is some kind of a methodology used on this. It wasn't just kind of a random, oh, let's use these colors kind of thing. It's such a beautiful, beautiful piece. Can you talk some about how you came up with that?
Yeah, so the colors are warp painted. It's a double weave, 8-shaft double weave fabric. So there's 2 layers, and I painted each warp separately. Then to get the block design, I used the words empathy and equality. And by that, I mean the word, I assigned a letter to a number, like A equals 1, B equals 2, and so on. And then I took the word empathy and figured, you know, whatever E is, A, B, C, D, 5. And so that became the number of blocks in one layer. So does that make sense? And then equality was used to determine the height of the blocks. Does that make sense? Okay. So, I mean, this is what I, you know, actually what I love was I had no idea how the colors would fall within each other, you know, when I painted it. So it was very, I usually have some sort of image, either something I've taken or an image that I respond to, mostly from nature and landscapes or something. So I use that kind of as a starting point, maybe for color choices, but I don't even follow that particularly very much. So that's the real spontaneity about it. And then, of course, then there's this system where I don't know exactly what those blocks are going to look like, other than E is going to be 5 and A is going to be 1 and so on. So
yeah, I guess it would be kind of hard to, I guess you could do it on a computer, but it still would be.
Well, I mean, I'm still a paper and pencil gal. And I do sometimes, I might do a profile draft a little bit, because sometimes I have to adjust the wording, you know, like I might have to repeat the word or to fit the size that I want. So I do a profile draft. So I have a general idea of, you know, the size of the blocks, but I just kind of let it be. I don't make any design choice like, oh, I don't want that, even though, you know, I don't change the size. I don't make any design choices in that respect.
Do you sample a lot?
The very first time I did an 8-shaft double weave painted warp, I did a sample, but after that it didn't.
You're my hero.
Well, some of it is I use the same yarn a lot, and so, you know, I don't have, you know, I know how the structure is going to work.
Oh, okay.
I sometimes, you know, for choosing the weft, I do, you know, I usually have maybe a half yard or less, where I, you know, try and decide what color weft yarn I want to use. But
well, these last 2 pieces we talked about, they do have meaning for you. Excuse me. And I always think it's interesting when, like, if you go to the museum and you read the card and the card tells you what the painting means, you know, and sometimes is it better just to see what your own meaning is, or do you want to know what the meaning is? And so I thought about that with your work. Is it important for you? I'm sure it's important for you to know what it means, But is it important for you that the person looking at it knows what it means? Like that it says empathy and equality is in there, or that no one totally leaves, that the story behind that. It was a very long question, just to get that one.
Short answer is it doesn't matter.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, in it, you know, it in a weird way. So I did a series like empathy and equality. I did 4 of those with 2 different words. Grace and compassion. Now I can't remember now, but it's a little bit of my way of putting goodness out there in the world. You know, and I think it's safe to say people would know that I'm more of a quiet person, and so I like working by myself. I'm fine being home all day in my studio. So the things that I express are quiet in a way. I mean, those are big pieces, but and maybe powerful looking. You know, if people ask, I would tell them. But
so if it was hanging in a museum, would you insist that the explanation be on the wall card, or would you say whatever?
Yeah, no, I would just put the title.
Oh, would you really? Okay.
Yeah, I would just put the title. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, let's change directions here.
Okay.
And I want to talk about Bonnie Tarsus, who was just on here.
Yes.
And you do collaborations with her in designing and doing a double weave horoscope. And then we have this absolutely gorgeous jacket.
Yes.
That your cousin is going to give me someday. I just and this was designed with Bonnie, right? You guys came up with this ideal of the horoscope.
Well, I'll tell you the story.
Tell me the story.
The story. Tell us all
the story.
The beginning of the pandemic. Well, I have long stories. I'll shorten it. Okay. I first met Bonnie when I was living in North Carolina, and she was thinking she might move to North Carolina, and she visited me in my studio when I was in Dillsboro. Then fast forward, that was probably like 2007 or something. Fast forward to 2019, I took her horoscope weaving workshop at MAFA.
Oh, okay.
And did that workshop. It's a plain weave. She gives you a color chart of your horoscope, if you're not familiar with her thing. And we had a great time. Loved Bonnie. We kind of hit it off and kept in touch a little bit. And then spring 2020, the pandemic and all, and I'm putting stuff on Facebook, and she saw one of my painted warp double weave pieces. In fact, I don't know if you can see it. It's that right there, framed piece.
Oh, okay.
And she saw it on Instagram and she said, "Oh, that's really cool. I wonder if we could do horoscope weaving and double weave." But she doesn't know anything about double weave.
Oh, okay.
And she doesn't need to know. It's okay she doesn't know about double weave, but she thought, wouldn't that be cool? Because a lot of times people who've taken her workshop say, "That's great. What else can I do? I did one double weave. I did plain weave. What other weave structures can I do?" So I said, okay, I need 2 layers for double weave. And so she, through her magic of her creating color striping for warps using your horoscope, she created another color draft for double weave. So 1 layer is your house and 1 layer is your sun sign. And that's what she does. She'll designs the color. So she did my horoscope in these 2 layers, and I wove it. And then I said, could you do my cousin's horoscope? So she did my cousin's, this is Molly, she did my cousin's horoscope, and I wove it. And I do different designs for the blocks. So a lot like using an alphabet or Fibonacci to create it. I like a system to create the pattern. I don't want to have any angst about it. If the system is, let's just plug in the numbers and it'll give me a pretty design. So I used a Fibonacci design pattern for her, and I just wove some fabric for her. And she came over and saw it, and I said, here, Molly, here's your fabric. What do you want? And she said she wanted to wear it. And I said, well, it's only 20 some inches wide, So I, we kind of went through my patterns, and I found this jacket that could work. It was this, you can kind of tell it's all rectangles and squares. And I could easily add, it's a black linen fabric, commercial fabric that I added to it. I had just enough handwoven fabric. And the other fun little story on this was my sewing machine that I had died, and I just bought a new sewing machine. So this was the first thing I sewed on my new sewing machine. So yeah.
Well, it's beautiful.
That's Molly in her jacket. And
just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Well, I love how when you were talking at the beginning, that you started with a table loom and that you eventually went to a very large draw loom. Big difference, big difference. And I understand you no longer have the draw loom.
No.
So it was kind of a goofy question. So if you went back and you looked over the various looms you've had, with all the different works that you completed on them, if the looms could talk, what would they say? Even the ones who aren't around.
Well, yeah. Actually, you had given me this question earlier, so I was able to ponder that a little bit. And I really realized I had quite a lot of looms that have kind of recycled through my years. But so I picked three. The table loom, which like I said, I still have, I thought would say, I knew you'd always upgrade.
Now, is there bitterness in that statement, or an atta girl?
Well, I think it was an atta girl, because my other thought was it might say, I knew you had it in you.
Oh, there you go. I like that better.
Yeah. So
I didn't want it to be, I knew you would leave me.
No, it wasn't that. It's like, it's okay. I knew you'd have to move on. The other loom that I've had for quite some time is you can kind of see it over there. It's a little baby wool from, early 80s. And so I've woven a lot on that. But I think it would say its favorite thing was when we'd go out and do demos, and little kids could come and weave on. So that was good. And then the draw loom, which now resides in beautiful mountain home in North Carolina. A little jealous of that, but that's okay. I think the draw loom, which wove so many wonderful things, and I loved every moment of it. But it was also time for it to move on to somebody else. But I would say the draw loom would say, I still love the very first thing that you wove on me when you didn't know what you were doing about a draw loom, and you had to figure it all out yourself, and the book written in Swedish language. And that was the dinosaur blanket you made for your son. It has dinosaurs on it, and his name and his birth date. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. Is the blanket still around?
The blanket is still around. Yes. It's living in Pennsylvania right now.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for answering that question.
Yes. No, I think that's a great question. I could come up with some others too, but.
Unfortunately, my loom would say, why aren't you weaving on me?
Get to work.
Get to work. What is this? You have a piece at the North Carolina Cancer Center in Chapel Hill. It was a commission piece that's called Mountain View Four Seasons. And we have an image of it here. Would you share with us how this kind of came about? I'm always curious about commission work. There's always a great story usually.
Yeah. Well, I don't do a lot of commission work like this, although now I've mentioned twice the previous one where I first figuring out the warp painting. And this one actually came not much longer after that. Mm-hmm. I was in a crit group living I was in North Carolina, and there was a woman in there who did a lot of commission work for hospitals. And so she would get a lot of requests. And so she passed this one on to me, and if I was interested, and I said, sure, why not? I don't know what I'm doing, but I knew she was there kind of to help me along too. So it was definitely a long process. Not only are there 4, separate panels woven there, and they're about 30 some inches wide and probably about 7 or 8 feet long. I mean, this picture is kind of cut off a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's all warp painting and off the loom. So I had to make a big space so I had enough length for all of that. I had to go through a process too of a lot of preliminary drawings and size and how you're going to hang it, and which I don't do mostly it's like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'll figure out the next thing, and I'll figure out the next thing, and the color might vary a little bit, but I knew for them, they needed to know what the colors were going to be like. So I did pencil sketches, and so it was just, it was a long process. It finally, and actually the challenge with this was how they were going to display it, because all my pieces, I either put a bar or do a Velcro, and there's a piece of wood on the wall and you Velcro the fabric and it hangs freely. Well, in this hospital, it had to be framed. They didn't want just
okay.
fabric. Yeah. I mean, there was also a quilt that, because I went and saw this after it was on display, and the quilt had to be framed too. And so I'm like, well, I can't, this is huge. I can't frame this. So I ended up sending it to them, just as fabric, and then they had somebody frame it. So now it's actually 2 panels are in one frame and another 2 panels are in another frame. So, kind of, I understood what they were saying about wanting it framed and under glass, but it to me, it took away a little bit of the fabric. But, I love doing it. And they gave me plenty of time. I mean, there was a deadline, but I had time to get it done.
How much time was involved in it?
Oh, it probably was a year.
Oh, okay.
From start to finish. Yeah.
What was it like to walk in and see it up?
Yeah, it was kind of amazing, actually. And actually there was all this beautiful artwork by North Carolina artists throughout the whole entryway. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was. And interestingly, so my piece is on this kind of stone 2-story pillar kind of. I think the elevator's inside it or something. And then on the other side is this quilt I was saying, and it too was a mountain scene. Well, of course, I mean, there are a lot of mountains in North Carolina that are inspiring. So, but there was a lot of 3-dimensional work too, and some paintings and stuff. But it was nice. It was a nice lobby. Yeah.
Well, as big as it is, was it really like the first time you saw them all together? Or did you have space big enough that you could see
yeah,
them?
I mean, the only, so I had a professional photographer take that picture that you just showed in Asheville, and he could put it on his wall. I couldn't put it.
Oh, okay.
It was on his wall. But I mean, it was in a photography studio, you know, like, but I hadn't seen it, you know, all together. And, you know, I had to have it so kind of the mountain from panel to panel kind of fit too, right? So that was a little nerve-wracking to make sure that the final thing, you know, didn't have some wonky mountain going, what?
Mother Nature.
Yeah, it's Mother Nature.
I meant to do that. Well, what's next? Oh, well, no, I forgot one question. I can't wait. I forgot this. And I love this question because you won a competition in Charlotte, North Carolina. I love this. This should be for every, well, I'll be greedy and say fiber artist. You won this competition, and the winner got this huge billboard and this sign of your work. It's wonderful. Can you talk about this?
So yeah, it was there's an organization in Charlotte. It's kind of morphed a little bit now, but it was called the Arts and Science Council, and they had you could enter to your artwork to be a billboard, and each year they chose, I want to say 5 or 6 artists, and then the year I was in it, they had a viewer's choice award. So in order for mine to get selected, people had to vote and send in their vote. So I was maniac on all my email lists, on all the social media.
Oh,
like, vote for me.
Would have won
vote for
anyway. Me. It would have won anyway.
Well, and so, you know, all the weavers there, I knew I had a strong contingency of weavers, because there's, I mean, mostly they're paintings and, you know, drawings and such. So yeah, it was so fun. It was actually very, very fun to have a weaving out, and it was up for a year, and it was the billboard that I'm holding there. It rotated to a couple different places, and then the newsstand, I think that went to a couple different places. You know, they kind of shifted things around throughout the year. And then when it came down, I was able to go get the billboard if I wanted it. So I did, and it's in my basement now.
I love that. Everybody should have a billboard if they're working.
I know.
Well, that is awesome. I love that. I wish more art organizations did something like that. That is great publicity. Yeah. Not just for you, but like you said, for fiber art.
Yeah.
As opposed to a sculpture or drawing.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I wish I'd seen them. I wish I'd driven by and went, oh my gosh.
I know. It is kind of fun to drive by and like, oh yeah, there's
I love that. That's great. So now I'm getting to the other question is, what is next for you?
Okay.
You have a workshop coming up?
We have a workshop coming up. If you've been inspired by those double weave pieces, and then actually the very first image that you showed when you're giving my intro is a sample of what we'll do in this workshop. It's double weave horoscope, and you'll it's I've got my notes here. It's October 30th through November 5th at Kill Devil Hills. It's a beautiful place. Even in October, it's actually quite lovely that time of year. You stay in a hotel. There's a conference room where we all have our loom set up. It's just a lot of fun. It will be the first time I'm teaching this, and Bonnie is doing some virtual teaching, so we're still collaborating on that. And she does the color horoscope part. We're going to use Mary Mag's Atwater for the workshop, but you'll also get your own personal color draft too if you sign up.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So, and the deadline is September 5th. So you can contact me or my other partner in crime, besides from Bonnie, is Beth Palmer. and you can contact her at weavingworkshop22@gmail.com.
And she's just posted that in the
Okay.
chat. Thank you.
She's the one.
Thank you.
She's the she's doing all the registration for it. Yeah, I mean, there's a few spots left, but not much. So it'll be fun.
Oh, I want to go.
You should come.
I know. I was just there.
I know. We were there the same time. Yeah, I mean, there will definitely be time for exploring the area. Well, that's part of the requirement is to go to the beach every day. So
I have to tell the story. It was so funny because Convergence, was so crazy, and we kept passing each other. And finally, through email, you said something about afterwards, and I said, the week after Convergence, I'm going to Nag's Head, and actually, I was in Kill Devil. It wasn't in Nag's Head.
Oh, yeah.
And you were like, I'm going to be there too.
Yeah, we were there at the same time. I know. It was just, yeah.
It so funny.
It was, yeah. But it was a great place to go after.
It was. It was beautiful. I got to see the horses. I was excited about that.
Yeah. And
well,
so
anyway,
I'm teaching at MAFA in the spring, warp painting.
Okay.
And I also have some more double weave horoscope projects I want to do. And I'm also continuing my kind of Ohio series called Landscape Memories, which is kind of what this one in the back is that I had at Convergence, just because it's, when I moved back here, it was like, oh yeah, that's what Ohio's like. I like Ohio.
Good. So you're teaching live again. So if a guild wants to invite you to come teach for them, you're open to that now?
I'm open to that. I don't, the warp painting, I have to take a lot of stuff. And so I generally have to drive, and I don't want to drive real far, although I am driving to the Outer Banks. But it kind of depends. But yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll just put it out there.
Put it out there.
All right, we have got tons of questions. I know we're not going to get to them all, but we will try.
Oh my gosh.
And lots of comments. And some of these I think you answered along the way, so we'll probably zip through these. Carrie Gordon wants to know, what yarn do you generally use? And she says, love your work. Thank you.
That's easy. I use Webb's 8-2 unmercerized cotton.
Okay. This is from Ramona Abernathy Payne. Recalling a discussion between you and Jennifer Moore about double weave pickup versus draw loom. Why did you leave the draw loom?
Why did I leave the draw loom?
That's what she asked.
Well, I had that loom for 30 years. And during the whole pandemic, when I was home and my draw loom was right next to me, I did not weave on it at all.
Really?
And it is kind of a physical, there's some physicality needed for that loom. I guess I kind of feel like I did everything I wanted to on it. And then we moved, and listen, I've moved a lot. And I said, when we moved to our house in Charlotte, I said, if we move again, I am not moving this thing, anymore. That's just, it's a project.
I bet.
It's a big project. And so it's fine. Helen in North Carolina, I don't know if she's out there. I thought if I could find somebody to buy it, it would be in North Carolina because of all the weavers there. And so she lives near the folk school. And so it had to go to a good home too. And so, yeah, it was just time.
You can start talking about Helen now instead of you.
Yeah.
Robin Becker wants to know how many shafts was on the draw loom.
Well, the shafts there's only 4 shafts that I use. It's a single unit draw loom.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, draw loom discussion would be a whole other program.
No kidding. Yes.
So, yeah.
In the panels, I'm assuming she meant for the hospital. What did you use for the weft? Is it a color or was it also painted?
The weft is a black.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a black. Okay. It's A2 cotton, and it's most of that. It's mostly warp faced. There were some tiny little branches in there in some of the areas, but it's mostly warp faced.
Barbara Carbajal wants to know, is the paint color fast?
The paint is color fast. I'm not giving all sorts of instruction, but all you have to do is heat set the paint with an iron and you can wash and dry it.
There you go.
Doesn't go
That was the next question.
Trust me. The other thing I say in my workshop. Trust me.
Marcia Steele wants to know, please direct us somewhere online where we can learn how to paint our warp. Is it on YouTube? Have you done a YouTube yet, Kathie?
I've not done a YouTube.
Well, jump on that.
Sign up for MAFA.
There you go. Now, is your class virtual or live?
It's live.
Okay.
At MAFA, yeah.
There you go, Marcia. Yeah. MAFA, Mid-Atlantic Fiber Arts Association, right? Mid-Atlantic
Fiber
Association. Yes. Check into it. Great conference.
It is. It's a nice little.
They have the best teachers.
They do.
Let's see. Mimi Anderson. Hey, Mimi. Are your weave structures mostly warp faced? And what wefts are you using? Oh, you talked about that already.
Yeah, the draw loom is mostly, the draw loom is mostly warp faced, I guess. Kind of depends.
But you use mostly plain weave?
Well, in the draw loom, it's a broken twill.
But everything else is kind of a plain weave?
Double weave is plain weave.
True. Okay.
But the other wall pieces and the painted warps that I do is a broken twill because I want it to be mostly warp faced.
I think this next question, actually it's a statement, and it's from Ruth Olmstead, and I think she's referring back to the leaves piece that you were talking about. She said, Kathie, thank you, so thoroughly enjoying explaining this very personal and moving piece. So thank you, Bruce. That was nice.
Thank you. I do like talking about it.
Well, a lot of these you've already answered. Oh, here's this Bonnie Tarsus person.
Oh, Bonnie.
Hey, Bonnie. She says, talk about your watercolor sketches.
Oh, yeah. Bonnie and I have had a sabbatical for the summer, so we haven't seen each other. So I have, people doodle with pencil and marker and such. Well, I pick up my watercolor paints and doodle, I guess. I don't know how to say that anymore. But yeah, they're my way of not thinking about anything but pushing color around and how water and color mix. And it's really they're quick, and I find that they've been very helpful in exploring the way I paint the warps too with the fabric paints. But yeah, I love doing those. I started doing them the beginning of the pandemic, and I think I probably have 4 or 5 sketchbooks now.
Yeah, I saw those on your website. I started to pull one. I'm sorry I didn't, but I encourage you all, go to her website, and we'll show that later, and see the sketches. They're Monet-like.
Yeah. So yeah, actually, so I'm on Facebook and Instagram too, and I put them there all the time.
They're beautiful. They really are nice. Thank you, Bonnie, for bringing those.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Also, Amy Patansu wanted to know.
Amy.
Thank you, Amy. All these North Carolina people.
I know.
So this is from Karen LeBlanc. Hi, Karen. For commissions in public areas, do you get questions about how to clean the pieces, or the color fast, or maintaining the pieces, or the hung? Yeah, do you like give them a book of here, this is how you take care of this?
No.
Okay.
I don't. I mean, the one in North Carolina, since they were framing it, I mean, they kind of took that over. The one at St. Bonaventure, they didn't frame that. It's 2 panels, 3 panels. And you know, I guess I don't know. I've done some, actually I forgot I had done some pieces for some churches, and I just say dry clean. So that's how I suggest you take care of them if you want to clean them, is to dry clean them.
Karen Dondy, he's North Carolina.
Karen, no heckling.
She wants to know about your shirt.
Of course she does. It's from Kohl's.
Wrong answer. Oh, I made this. I tie-dyed it. I used indigo. I grew in the garden.
No, Kohl's. I think it was $5.99.
There you go. Oh, these North Carolina people.
I know, Karen. Love Karen.
Everybody wants to know what kind of paint you use. I don't know if you said earlier or not.
It's Dynaflow paint.
And where does one get Dynaflow?
One can get Dynaflow paint from Dick Blick.
Really?
Oh yeah. It's I mean, I've seen it like at Michael's.
Oh, okay. Dynaflow.
Yeah. It was designed, I mean, it like silk painters use it, you know, if you're painting on silk.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Is it pretty thick?
No, it's
okay.
not thick at all. It's like watercolor paint.
Okay.
It's
well,
like
Amy Patansu, and this is a no. She said, she likes your watercolors, and she talked about those and said, do you think you might become a painter only eventually? No, Amy, not allowed. Okay, I'll let you answer.
you know, I think they can both live together in my brain.
Oh, good. We like that. Char Norman.
Oh yeah.
So glad Molly introduced us. Ohio is lucky to have you here.
Yes. So she knows
All right, you Buckeyes.
Yeah. Yep. Hi, Char.
Oh, here's a shout out. Andrea Vale. Just a comment. Kathie, I continue to be blown away. You and your work is so inspiring. I have to agree with that. And that's a great way to end. And I apologize to everybody who I didn't get to your questions. A lot of them are how-to questions. So first of all, go to Moffat, then you'll learn how. And would they be able to email you or contact you through your website to ask questions? Or
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Was fun. This was fun. And if you do want to see more of Kathie's work, be sure you go to her website, kmrhandwoven.com, right?
Correct.
Good job. I can't believe I remembered that. Right. And I do want to thank our sponsor today. We were so sweet to have Harriet Ringgold be our I'm going to start calling y'all Textiles and Tea Angels for sponsoring us today. And it was great to have you there. So we appreciate it. If you are interested in becoming a sponsor yourself, feel free to go to our website and you can learn more about being a sponsor. You can either be sponsored from your company or yourself or your guild. We have lots of opportunities to sponsor, and we appreciate all the support that we are getting through donations, whether it's with the Fiber Trust or by being a member. And don't forget, we're still doing our 100 episodes. Will be in November 29th. And we're trying to do 100 donations in 100 days. And we're moving up slowly up our little thermometer here. So we encourage you all to make a donation to keep Textiles and Tea going. And we appreciate everybody who's donated so far. We've got some new things coming up later on this year. If you liked doing the towel exchange, either through Convergence or online, we're doing some more towel exchange. Penny Morgan just can't stop. She always runs these and does a beautiful job. So we're doing the scarf exchange again, and it's open until October 23rd. So you still have time to make a scarf. Go online to weavespindye.org and look at the instructions. It's a little different than just a towel exchange. So look at the instructions. It's a great opportunity to be able to see other people's work and get someone else's scarf. And then the new thing this year is a hand woven bookmark exchange. So for some of us who need to start small, here's another great way to do this. It has to be hand woven. It could be on an inkle loom, it can be on a floor loom, table loom, as long as it's woven. And again, you can see all the information about these exchanges at weavespindye.org/textile exchanges and rentals. Look on there, and all of the textile exchanges has the information there about the guidelines and the deadlines and everything. So we're excited about this new one, bookmark exchange. I may actually be able to get my act together and do that one. That would be great. If you have missed any episodes, you can watch them on Facebook. You don't have to have a membership. You can just watch them. And as far as I know, I think we're almost caught up on YouTube. It takes a while to get them up on YouTube, but check those out if you would rather watch them on YouTube than Facebook. And also, I would encourage you to do a subscription to our YouTube page, because then you'll get a notice when new episodes are uploaded. So check those out. We are excited that we had Kathie today. Thank you again. It was wonderful to have you here. Next week, another North Carolinian, Catherine Ellis, would be our guest. And if you're unaware of her, she is the one of the go-to people about natural dyes. So I encourage you to join us next week. Hope you all have a great week, and we will see you next Tuesday. Happy tea.